I'll do my best to expand the story to the desired word count while maintaining an engaging narrative. Here's the expanded story. As Dr. Sophia Patel ventured deeper into the hidden city, the air thickened with an eerie silence. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, the weight of ancient eyes upon her. The city's structures loomed above her, their intricate carvings seeming to writhe in the flickering torchlight. Sophia's team fanned out around her, their whispers and footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The team's excitement was palpable, but Sophia's instincts screamed warning. She'd been in situations like this before, where the thrill of discovery warred with a primal sense of danger. "Let's take a moment to document the site," she cautioned, her voice low and even. "We don't want to risk damaging anything." As they began to set up equipment, a low hum began to vibrate through the air, like the distant thrumming of a harp string. Sophia felt it in her bones, a cold resonance that sent shivers down her spine. The team's chatter ceased and they exchanged nervous glances. "What's happening?" one of them whispered. Sophia's eyes locked onto a massive stone door, adorned with symbols that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. The hum grew louder and the symbols began to glow with an otherworldly light. "We need to get out of here now," Sophia urged, but her feet seemed rooted to the spot. The door creaked open, revealing a dark chamber beyond. A cold wind howled out, extinguishing the torches and plunging the city into darkness. Sophia stumbled forward, her heart racing as an unseen force pulled her toward the chamber. She felt herself being drawn into the very heart of the city's darkness. As she fell, she saw visions of an ancient civilization, their rituals and sacrifices writ large on the walls of her mind. She saw the city's downfall, the terrible price they paid for their knowledge. And she saw a figure, a presence that watched her with cold calculation. The visions faded, and Sophia found herself in a vast underground chamber, the ceiling lost in darkness. The air was heavy with the scent of incense and something far more sinister. She stumbled forward, her footsteps echoing off the walls. When Sophia came to, she was alone, her head throbbing with pain. The city was silent once more, the only sound the distant rush of wind through the mountains. But as she stumbled to her feet, she realized she wasn't alone for long. Footsteps echoed through the city, heavy and deliberate. Whatever was coming for her, it was getting closer. The darkness seemed to coalesce around her, taking on a life of its own. Sophia fumbled for her flashlight, her fingers closing around the familiar shape, a comforting presence. But as she turned it on, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Her team standing frozen in the distance, their eyes black as coal. "Sophia," they whispered in unison, their voices not their own. "We've been waiting." The words sent a chill down her spine as they began to move towards her, their movements stiff and unnatural. Sophia tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. She was trapped, frozen in terror as her team closed in. Their eyes seemed to bore into her soul, and she felt her mind begin to slip. She was consumed by a sense of hopelessness, as if she'd stumbled into a nightmare from which she couldn't wake. Just as all seemed lost, a figure emerged from the shadows, its presence commanding the team's attention. Sophia's team halted, their black eyes fixed on the newcomer. The figure turned to Sophia, its eyes piercing the darkness. "You're not one of them," it said, its voice low and gravelly. "You have a purpose here." The figure's words were laced with an otherworldly authority, and Sophia felt a spark of hope. But before she could respond, the ground gave way beneath her and she fell into darkness once more. This time she landed hard on stone, the air knocked from her lungs. As she struggled to breathe, she saw the figure standing over her, its eyes glowing with an ancient power. "The Master awaits," it whispered, its voice echoing off the walls. "And you will soon face your destiny." Sophia's mind reeled as the figure reached out and touched her forehead. Everything went black and she was consumed by a sea of visions. She saw the city's history unfold before her, the secrets of the ancient civilization revealed in vivid detail. She saw the city's founders, a group of powerful sorcerers who had sought to unlock the secrets of the universe. They had delved deep into the mysteries of life and death, and their power had grown exponentially. But with great power comes great corruption, and the city's rulers had become consumed by their own ambition. Sophia saw the rituals, the sacrifices, and the terrible price the city's inhabitants had paid for their knowledge. She saw the downfall, the city's destruction, and the few survivors who had managed to escape. And she saw the figure, the presence that had watched her with cold calculation. The visions faded, and Sophia found herself back in the chamber, the figure standing over her. "You see," it said, its voice low and gravelly. "You have a purpose here. You will be the key to unlocking the secrets of this city." Sophia's mind reeled as the figure reached out and handed her a small, intricately carved stone. "This is the key," it said. "But be warned, Sophia. You are not the only one who seeks to unlock the secrets of this city. There are others who will stop at nothing to claim its power for themselves." Sophia took the stone, feeling its weight and power in her hand. She knew that she had to get out of the city, to escape the clutches of the figure and its master. But as she turned to leave, she heard the sound of footsteps echoing through the city. The figure's eyes seemed to gleam with excitement as it whispered, "It seems you have company, Sophia. The hunt is on." As Sophia ran through the city, the stone clutched in her hand, she knew that she was running for her life. The footsteps grew louder, and she could feel the presence of her pursuers closing in. She was trapped in a nightmare, and she didn't know if she'd ever wake up. The city seemed to shift and twist around her, the walls closing in as she ran. Sophia's breath came in ragged gasps, her heart pounding in her chest. She was running out of time, and she knew it. Just when she thought all was lost, Sophia saw a glimmer of light in the distance. She burst through the city's gates, emerging into the bright sunlight. She stumbled down the mountain, the stone clutched in her hand as the city's secrets and mysteries receded into the distance. But as she reached the bottom of the mountain, Sophia knew that she wasn't safe yet. The figure's words echoed in her mind, "You are not the only one who seeks to unlock the secrets of this city." She knew that she had to find help, to find someone she could trust. Sophia looked around, her eyes scanning the landscape. And then she saw it, a figure standing in the distance, watching her. Sophia's heart skipped a beat as the figure began to walk towards her. "Who are you?" Sophia called out, her voice shaking with fear. The figure didn't respond, but instead continued to walk towards her. Sophia knew that she had to be prepared, that her life was about to change forever. As the figure drew closer, Sophia saw that it was a woman, her eyes piercing green and her hair long and dark. "My name is Ariana," the woman said, her voice low and mysterious. "And I've been waiting for you, Sophia. You have something that belongs to me." As Dr. Sophia Patel and her team ventured deeper into the labyrinth, the air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and mold. The flickering torches cast eerie shadows on the walls, making it seem as though they were being stalked by unseen creatures. Sophia's team exchanged nervous glances, their excitement and curiosity tempered by a growing sense of unease. The labyrinth's walls were adorned with intricate carvings, depicting scenes of mythological creatures and ancient battles. Sophia's eyes widened as she recognized some of the symbols, which matched the descriptions of the Minotaur's lair from ancient Greek mythology. "This is incredible," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of dripping water. "These carvings are thousands of years old." As they navigated the twisting tunnels, the team stumbled upon a large stone door with a symbol of the Minotaur emblazoned on it. The door was covered in dust and cobwebs, and it looked like it hadn't been opened in centuries. Sophia's heart racing, she reached out and touched the symbol. The door creaked loudly as it swung open, revealing a vast underground chamber beyond. The chamber was filled with ancient artifacts and relics, including a massive stone statue of the Minotaur. Sophia's team gasped in awe, their lights illuminating the dark space. But as they approached the statue, they noticed something strange. The Minotaur's eyes seemed to be glowing with an otherworldly energy. Suddenly, the team heard a low rumbling noise, like the sound of distant thunder. The ground began to shake and the walls started to close in. "We need to get out of here now," Sophia shouted, grabbing her team and pulling them towards the door. But it was too late. The door slammed shut behind them, trapping them inside. As the team frantically searched for another exit, Sophia approached the statue. The Minotaur's glowing eyes seemed to be drawing her in, and she felt a strange connection to the ancient creature. "Sophia, what are you doing?" one of her team members shouted, but she didn't respond. The rumbling grew louder and the ground shook violently. Sophia reached out and touched the Minotaur's stone hoof. And then everything went black. When Sophia came to, she was alone in the chamber. The team was nowhere to be seen and the statue was silent and still. But as she stumbled to her feet, she heard a voice echoing off the walls. "Welcome, Dr. Patel," it said. "I've been waiting for you." Sophia spun around, trying to locate the source of the voice. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Where is my team?" The voice laughed, a low, menacing sound. "Your team is safe for now," it said. "But you, Dr. Patel, are in grave danger. You see, the Minotaur's lair is more than just a myth. It's a testing ground. And you, my dear doctor, are about to face the greatest challenge of your life." As the voice finished speaking, the chamber began to change. The walls shifted and rearranged themselves, revealing a maze of twisting tunnels and dark corridors. Sophia knew that she had to navigate the labyrinth if she wanted to survive. But she had no idea where to start or what lay ahead. With a deep breath, Sophia steeled herself for the challenge. She knew that she had to find her team and escape the labyrinth. But as she took her first step forward, she heard the sound of footsteps, echoing through the tunnels. Whatever was coming for her, it was getting closer. Sophia's heart racing, she began to run. She knew that she had to keep moving to find a way out of the labyrinth before it was too late. But as she ran, the tunnel seemed to shift and change around her, leading her deeper into the heart of the labyrinth. And then, just as she thought she was making progress, Sophia saw it. A figure standing at the end of the tunnel. Watching her. Waiting for her. The figure didn't move, didn't speak. It just stood there, its eyes fixed on Sophia. And then everything went black. When Sophia came to, she was lying on a cold stone floor. The figure was nowhere to be seen, but she could feel its presence, watching her. She knew that she had to get out of there to find her team and escape the labyrinth. But as she stumbled to her feet, she realized that she was not alone. There were others in the labyrinth, others who were also trapped. And they were coming for her. Sophia's heart racing, she began to run. She knew that she had to find a way out before it was too late. But as she ran, the labyrinth seemed to shift and change around her, leading her deeper into its heart. And then, just as she thought she was getting close to escaping, Sophia heard the sound of the Minotaur's roar echoing through the tunnels. The ground shook beneath her feet, and Sophia knew that she was running out of time. The Minotaur was coming, and Sophia was trapped in its lair. As the Minotaur's laughter echoed through the pit, Dr. Patel's team felt a sense of trepidation wash over them. They had chosen to stay and play another round, and now they were faced with the unknown consequences of their decision. The pit continued to shake and tremble, and the walls seemed to close in around them. Dr. Patel's team looked at each other nervously, wondering what the next challenge would be. Suddenly, the walls of the pit slid open, revealing a dark and ominous tunnel. The air was thick with the scent of decay and corruption, and Dr. Patel's team could hear the sound of scuttling creatures coming from within. "This is the next challenge," the Minotaur said, its voice dripping with malice. "You must navigate the tunnel and reach the end where you will find the next clue." Dr. Patel's team looked at each other uncertainly. They knew that the tunnel would be treacherous and they were not sure if they would make it out alive. But they had no choice. They took a deep breath and stepped into the tunnel, the darkness closing in around them like a living thing. As they walked, the tunnel seemed to twist and turn, leading them deeper into the heart of the pit. Dr. Patel's team could hear the sound of creatures scuttling through the darkness, and they knew that they were not alone. Suddenly, the tunnel opened up into a large cavern. The ceiling disappeared into darkness, and the walls were lined with glittering crystals that reflected the faint light. But it was not the crystals that caught Dr. Patel's team's attention. It was the creatures that inhabited the cavern. They were unlike anything Dr. Patel's team had ever seen before. They were humanoid in shape, but their skin was a mass of writhing, pulsing tendrils. Their eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and their mouths were filled with razor-sharp teeth. "Welcome to our home," one of the creatures said, its voice like a rusty gate. "You will make a fine addition to our collection." Dr. Patel's team knew that they had to get out of there fast. They turned to run, but it was too late. The creatures had already surrounded them, their eyes glowing with an unnatural hunger. Dr. Patel's team fought for their lives, but they were vastly outnumbered. Just when it seemed like all was lost, Dr. Patel remembered the words of the Minotaur. "The greatest fear of all is the fear of being trapped, of losing control, of being forced to do something against one's will." She realized that the creatures were not just mindless beasts, but were instead driven by a deep-seated fear. And she knew that if she could tap into that fear, she might be able to find a way out. With newfound determination, Dr. Patel stepped forward and addressed the creatures. "I understand your fear," she said. "But you don't have to be controlled by it. You can choose to be free." The creatures paused, their glowing eyes fixed on Dr. Patel. For a moment she thought she saw a glimmer of uncertainty in their eyes. And then in a flash of insight Dr. Patel knew what she had to do. She reached out and touched one of the creatures, and suddenly she was flooded with visions of its past. She saw the creature's homeworld, a planet of darkness and shadow. She saw the creature's people enslaved by a powerful and malevolent force. And she saw the creature's fear, a deep-seated fear of being trapped and controlled. Dr. Patel's team watched in amazement as the creatures seemed to undergo a transformation. Their eyes lost their glow, and their tendrils ceased their writhing. The creature that Dr. Patel had touched looked at her with a newfound intelligence. "Thank you," it said. "We are free." Dr. Patel's team breathed a sigh of relief as the creatures stepped aside, allowing them to pass. They knew that they still had a long way to go, but they were one step closer to escaping the pit. As they continued on their journey, Dr. Patel couldn't help but wonder what other challenges lay ahead. But she was determined to face them head-on, knowing that she and her team had the strength and courage to overcome anything. The pit seemed to be shifting and changing around them, but Dr. Patel's team pressed on, driven by their determination to escape. And then suddenly they saw a glimmer of light in the distance. They quickened their pace, their hearts pounding with excitement. As they emerged from the tunnel, they found themselves back in the pit, but this time the Minotaur was nowhere to be seen. Instead there was a door slightly ajar. Dr. Patel's team looked at each other, and without a word they knew what they had to do. They pushed open the door and stepped through it, into the unknown. As they emerged on the other side, they found themselves in a bright, sunlit room. They blinked, covering their eyes, and when they opened them again, they saw a figure standing before them. It was a woman with long flowing hair and a kind smile. "Welcome," she said. "You have passed the test. You are free to go." Dr. Patel's team looked at each other and then back at the woman. "What test?" one of them asked. The woman smiled. "The test of your courage, your wits, and your heart. You have proven yourselves to be worthy. You may leave now and return to your world." Dr. Patel's team cheered, hugging each other in relief. They had done it. They had escaped the pit. But as they turned to leave, Dr. Patel couldn't shake the feeling that the pit was not just a physical challenge, but a metaphorical one as well. She knew that they had faced their fears and overcome them, but she also knew that the journey was far from over. As Dr. Patel and Marcus sat in the darkness, they heard the sound of footsteps echoing through the room. The footsteps were heavy and deliberate, and they seemed to be getting closer and closer. Dr. Patel's heart was racing as she realized that they were not alone. She grabbed Marcus's arm, her fingers digging deep into his skin. "What do we do?" she whispered. Marcus's voice was shaking. "I don't know," he said. "But I think we should try to find a way out of here." Dr. Patel nodded, and together they felt their way through the darkness, trying to find a door or a window. But every step they took seemed to lead them further into the room. The footsteps grew louder, and Dr. Patel could feel the vibrations of the person's weight on the floor. She knew that they were running out of time. Suddenly a light flickered on, illuminating the room. Dr. Patel blinked, covering her eyes. When she opened them again, she saw a figure standing before them. It was a woman, tall and imposing, with piercing green eyes. She was dressed in a long flowing gown, and her hair was pulled back into a tight bun. "Welcome," she said, her voice low and husky. "I've been waiting for you." Dr. Patel's team exchanged nervous glances. "Who are you?" Dr. Patel asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The woman smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "My name is irrelevant," she said. "What is relevant is that you have been poking your noses into matters that are beyond your understanding." Dr. Patel stood up straight, her eyes locked onto the woman's. "We're just trying to uncover the truth," she said. The woman laughed, a low, menacing sound. "The truth?" she repeated. "You don't want to know the truth. Trust me, you don't want to go down that path." Dr. Patel's eyes narrowed. "I think we do," she said. "We have a right to know what's going on." The woman's smile grew wider. "Very well," she said. "If you want to know the truth, I'll show you. But don't say I didn't warn you." As she spoke, the room began to shift and change around them. The walls disappeared, and Dr. Patel's team found themselves standing at the edge of a vast underground chamber. The chamber was filled with ancient artifacts and relics, and in the center of the room, Dr. Patel saw a large stone statue of the Minotaur. The woman gestured to the statue. "This is the heart of the lost city," she said. "And this is where your journey will end." Dr. Patel's team exchanged nervous glances. They knew that they had to get out of there fast. But as they turned to leave, they found that the doors were sealed, and the woman was standing in front of them, a cold smile on her face. "You see, Dr. Patel," she said, "you and your team have been chosen to participate in a little experiment. An experiment to see how well you can survive in a controlled environment." Dr. Patel's eyes widened as she realized the truth. "You're the one who's been behind all of this," she accused. The woman nodded, a look of pride on her face. "Yes, I am. And soon, you will be nothing but a part of the Minotaur's legend." As the woman's words echoed through the chamber, Dr. Patel's team knew that they were in grave danger. They had to think fast, or they would become the Minotaur's next victims. The woman's smile grew wider as she watched the fear in their eyes. "The game is on," she said, her voice dripping with malice. And with that, the chamber began to shake and tremble. Dr. Patel's team stumbled, and when they looked up, they saw that the Minotaur was coming to life. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and its massive body began to move towards them. Dr. Patel's team knew that they had to run, or they would be crushed beneath its feet. As they ran, the chamber seemed to shift and change around them. The walls disappeared, and they found themselves in a maze of twisting corridors. Dr. Patel's team ran as fast as they could, but the Minotaur was gaining on them. They could hear its thunderous roar and feel the ground shaking beneath their feet. Just when they thought all was lost, they saw a glimmer of light in the distance. They burst through the door and found themselves back in the bright sunlight. They gasped, looking around in confusion. They were standing in the middle of a busy street, surrounded by people going about their daily business. Dr. Patel's team looked at each other, relief written on their faces. They had made it out alive. But as they turned to leave, Dr. Patel saw something that made her blood run cold. A small, intricately carved stone statue of the Minotaur, sitting on a nearby bench. It was watching them, its eyes glinting in the sunlight. And Dr. Patel knew that the game was far from over. The statue seemed to be waiting for them, its presence a reminder that the Minotaur was always watching, always waiting. Dr. Patel's team knew that they had to get out of there fast. They quickly made their way through the crowd, trying to lose themselves in the city. But they knew that they couldn't escape the Minotaur's reach. Not now that they had uncovered its secrets. The game had just begun, and Dr. Patel's team was ready to play. But they knew that they would have to be careful, or they would become the Minotaur's next victims. Yes, they disappeared into the crowd. The statue remained, watching and waiting. The Minotaur's presence was still felt, and Dr. Patel knew that their journey was far from over. The Minotaur would be back, and next time, it would not be so easy to escape. As Maria and her team ventured deeper into the temple, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber filled with ancient artifacts. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the walls were adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to whisper secrets to each other. In the center of the room, a pedestal held a glowing crystal orb. The orb pulsed with an otherworldly energy, and Maria felt an inexplicable pull towards it. "This must be the artifact," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the orb. Her team gathered around her, their faces filled with a mix of awe and trepidation. "What do you think it does?" one of them asked. Maria's eyes never left the orb. "I think it's the key to unlocking the Minotaur's lair," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. As she reached out to touch the orb, a voice echoed through the chamber, its tone cold and menacing. "You shouldn't have come here," it said. Maria's team spun around, but there was no one in sight. "Who are you?" Maria demanded, her voice firm. The voice laughed, a low, menacing sound. "I am the guardian of this temple," it said. "And you, Maria, are a curious one. You seek knowledge, but do you know the cost?" Maria's eyes narrowed. "What cost?" she asked. The voice laughed again. "The artifact you seek is not a simple relic," it said. "It holds the power to unlock the Minotaur's lair, but it comes with a terrible price. Are you willing to pay it?" Maria hesitated, her mind racing with the possibilities. She had always been driven by a desire for knowledge, but now she was faced with the possibility that her pursuit might come at a terrible cost. "What is the price?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The voice fell silent, and the chamber grew darker as if the very shadows themselves were listening in. Maria felt a chill run down her spine as she realized that she might have made a terrible mistake. And then the voice spoke again. "The price is your soul," it said. If you take the artifact, you will be forever changed. You will be bound to the Minotaur and your fate will be sealed. Maria's team gasped, their faces pale with fear. But Maria's eyes never left the orb. She felt a strange connection to it, a sense that she was meant to possess it. I'm willing to take the risk, she said, her voice firm. The voice laughed again and the chamber began to shake. The orb began to glow brighter, and Maria felt a surge of energy flow through her as she reached out to take the orb. Her team grabbed her arms, trying to hold her back. Maria, don't do it, one of them shouted, but it was too late. Maria's fingers closed around the orb and she felt a searing pain as the energy coursed through her body. The chamber began to dissolve around her, and Maria felt herself being pulled through a vortex of darkness. She saw visions of the Minotaur, its eyes blazing with fury, and she knew that she had unleashed a terrible evil upon the world. As the darkness closed in around her, Maria realized that she might have made a terrible mistake. The Minotaur was not a creature to be trifled with, and she had just awakened a horror beyond her wildest imagination. The last thing Maria saw was the Minotaur's face, its eyes burning with an otherworldly fire. And then everything went black. When Maria came to, she was lying on a cold stone floor. The chamber was gone and she was alone. But she knew that she was not alone for long. The Minotaur would come for her and she would have to face its wrath. Maria's eyes slowly focused, and she saw that she was in a dark, damp cellar. The walls were made of stone, and the air was thick with the scent of mold and decay. She tried to stand up, but a wave of dizziness washed over her. She stumbled and fell back to the ground. As she lay there, she heard the sound of footsteps echoing through the cellar. The Minotaur was coming for her and she knew that she had to get out of there. But as she looked around, Maria realized that she was trapped. The cellar was sealed and there was no escape. The footsteps grew louder and Maria knew that she was running out of time. She had to think fast or she would become the Minotaur's next victim. And then, just as all hope seemed lost, Maria saw a glimmer of light in the distance. It was a small, narrow passageway, and it looked like it might be just big enough for her to squeeze through. Maria's heart racing, she crawled towards the passageway. She knew that it was her only chance of escape. As she squeezed through the passageway, she heard the Minotaur's roar of rage echoing through the cellar. She knew that she had to keep moving or she would be trapped forever. But as she emerged on the other side of the passageway, Maria realized that she was not alone. The Minotaur was standing in front of her, its eyes blazing with fury, and then everything went black. As the team sailed away from the shore, they couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over them. They had made it out of the labyrinth and now they were headed into the unknown. The woman stood at the helm of the ship, her staff held high as she navigated the treacherous waters. The team watched in awe as she expertly guided the ship through the waves, her eyes fixed on the horizon. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the team settled in for the long night ahead. They were exhausted, but they knew they couldn't afford to rest yet. They had to keep moving, had to get as far away from the labyrinth as possible. The woman handed out food and water and the team ate in silence, their eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. The night wore on and the team began to feel a sense of unease. The sea was getting rougher and the wind was picking up. The ship creaked and groaned and the team held on tight. Suddenly, a loud crack split the air and the ship lurched violently. The team stumbled and one of them fell to the deck. "What's happening?" someone cried out, their voice filled with fear. The woman stood up, her staff held high. "The mast is breaking," she shouted above the wind. "We need to get it fixed now." The team sprang into action, working together to secure the mast and keep the ship afloat. But as they worked, they knew that they were running out of time. The storm was getting worse and the ship was taking on water. As the night wore on, the team's hopes began to fade. They were battered by the waves and the wind was howling like a beast. They knew that they couldn't keep this up for much longer. And then, just when it seemed like all was lost, the woman shouted out, "Land ahead." The team looked up, their eyes straining to see through the darkness. And then they saw it, a dark shape looming in the distance, its outline barely visible through the storm. The team cheered, their voices hoarse from shouting above the wind. They knew that they had made it, that they had found a place to ride out the storm. As they drew closer to the shore, the team could see that the land was covered in a thick, misty fog. The trees seemed to loom out of the fog like skeletal fingers, and the team could feel a strange, unnatural energy emanating from the land. The woman's eyes narrowed as she gazed at the land. "This is not a natural place," she said, her voice low and serious. The team exchanged nervous glances. What did she mean? What kind of place was this? As they sailed closer to the shore, the team's unease grew. They knew that they were taking a risk going ashore in a place like this. But they also knew that they had no choice. The storm was getting worse and they needed a place to hide. And so, with a sense of trepidation, they steered the ship towards the shore, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As they dropped anchor and stepped onto dry land, the team felt a strange sensation, like the earth itself was watching them. And then they heard it, a low, whispery voice that seemed to be coming from the trees themselves. "Welcome," the voice said. "We've been waiting for you." The team's hearts sank as they realized that they were not alone on this island. And they knew that their nightmare was far from over. The voice seemed to be coming from all around them, echoing off the trees and the fog. It was a voice that seemed to be both ancient and evil, and it sent shivers down the team's spines. "What do you want from us?" one of the team members asked, her voice trembling with fear. The voice laughed, a low, menacing sound. "Oh, we want many things," it said. "But most of all, we want to play a game with you." The team's eyes widened as they realized that they were in grave danger. They knew that they had to get out of there and fast. But as they turned to leave, they found that the ship was gone. They were stranded on the island with no way to escape. The team looked at each other in horror, knowing that they were trapped. And then the voice spoke again.